I was 15 when a doctor looked at me in Bern and predicted my life, or tried to. And he painted a picture of a life with a wheelchair, with chronic pain, with a lot of suffering and challenges, a short life, and he did add, not a good one. I was already walking on crutches. I had had juvenile polyarthritis, a dozen bouts of malaria, bulimia, and other illnesses I won't go into. And my body felt like a battlefield and a battle I was warring, which I was losing. So I did what I was taught to do. I was tough, I fought, I tried harder, I denied it, and I pushed my way through it. 35 years later, I'm still here. I'm not in a wheelchair, and I'm living a life that is connected, rich, fulfilling, beautiful. But one thing the doctor was right about, the pain that stayed. But he was wrong what it would mean for me. And the difference wasn't willpower. It wasn't positive thinking. The difference, and one of the most challenging lessons for me to learn, was to learn to stop fighting. It was unlearning. This morning when I woke up, I had strong pain from torn ligaments and my shoulder where ligaments have torn. I'll go through this day probably with a 6 or a 7 level of pain, and I'll go to bed and the pain will still be here. But it will have been a wonderful day because I was present and I was here with you. I'd like to share what it means to live in these interesting times indeed. A challenge that we all face is the gap between the life that we would like to have, wish to have, dream of having, and the life that was given to us, the life that is here. That gap between what we would like and the reality. And I've learned to mind that gap. I noticed 2 different sufferings. There's a primary suffering, which many of us experience, be that chronic illness, mental illness, be it conflict, be it wars, be it climate change, loss, injustice, whatever. Secondary suffering is our response to this, and that response is often resistance. But there is another way, because we can avoid, to some degree, the secondary suffering, even if we can't avoid the primary suffering. Many of us have been taught that strength means fighting, trying harder. The word says it all. We fight cancer. We fight chronic pain. We fight injustice. We don't give up. You're noticing the language. But what I've experienced is that fighting isn't always the right response. And sometimes the most powerful form of resistance comes from a place of deep, deep acceptance. As someone living with chronic pain, I'm constantly confronted with messages, sometimes implicit, sometimes explicit. If you would do X, Y, and Z, then some of your suffering would be easier to cope with or would just miraculously go away. You've heard it all. And the subtext is often, you're just not trying right enough, right? You're not doing the right things. You're choosing this. Why don't you choose? You get the idea. But what if there's a different way? Radical acceptance comes when I realize I can't always alleviate the primary suffering, but I can minimize secondary suffering. And I can put my energy into growing a garden in the midst of conflict, in the midst of weeds. Radical acceptance is not giving up. It's not saying no, it's saying yes. It's saying, fine, I'm living this life with the pain, but I'm not just going to suffer quietly. It's not my private thing. But the pain is part of my reality of who I am, who this person, Mark, is about. I see my illness as a part of my health, not the enemy of it. And so I work on my health. I move carefully. I try to manage my energy strategically. I manage flare-ups. But I don't wage war against my own body. Radical acceptance means I stop wasting my energy resisting, because I want to use that energy to build something positive. I want to use that energy to build what could be. Language we use creates the reality that we live in. And I've stopped understanding pain, for example, as an attack. I talk about a pain wave, which rolls in and rolls out. Why? Attack puts me at war with my own body. A wave acknowledges the reality of something coming and going. The wonderful Brené Brown says, talk to yourself as to someone you love. When I started doing this, everything changed. Not my circumstances, but my relationship to them. Sometimes we can talk ourselves into a new reality of what we experience. Listen to the difference. Old, I've got a killing headache. New, I have a headache, but I also have a place to be in Geneva giving a talk. Old, I take painkillers. New, I take something to help me manage my pain. We fight cancer, or we face cancer. There's a difference. Radical acceptance in practice is refusing to lock reality into one single catastrophic story. I'm fascinated by the human experience. I love it. We have impressive capabilities and potential. And yet we're remarkably limited, and I feel that every day. We can live awesome lives, but only within a certain bandwidth. And life unfolds its beauty when I neither overestimate my capabilities nor underestimate those constraints. And humility is what grants courage, the soil to grow in. Acceptance shuts this gap between what is and what should be. And I learned this in Cambodia, working in prisons a few years ago, where I met a wonderful woman who had been awaiting trial for 7 months. She was accused of instigating a violent protest, while actually she had been doing peace-building work, while facilitating conversations with young girls in a very impoverished area. And while she was telling me this story in 35 degrees sweltering heat in that prison courtyard, I felt my anger rise. It was hot, it was sharp, it was fierce, it was righteous. And that injustice, it felt unbearable. And she noticed, and she looked at me, she took my hand, she held it and said, "Mark, we resist injustice, but we hold it lightly. No one can take the dream that I have for these girls." The feather that she was talking about replaced her sword. In that brief moment, she built a bridge, a very simple bridge, away from resistance and fighting, across to radical, loving, gentle, but powerful acceptance. I use 4 steps to help me live and practice this acceptance, so that I can love the life I have with the pain. The first step is that I name what is. I have strong pain in my shoulder from torn ligaments. Not my back is killing me. Not I can't function. Just describing what is. Step 2 is giving that description room, pulsating, sharp when I move, intense pain since 5 a.m., No drama, no judgment, just the facts. Step 3, I touch it. And touching the pain is an incredibly important step. I breathe, I visualize, I go with my feather to the places and beyond in my body that are hurting, or an external conflict or injustice or what it may be. The pain is here, and my response to it is not to tighten up, but to let go. And touching it in a loving way gives me the freedom to move forward. It's touching that makes the pain bearable and not a damage. And step 4 is I share it. When I walked here this morning, I told the organizers, I have a strong pain in my shoulder, I may need to sit. No drama, just sharing what is, not making that the story, but also not privatizing the suffering so that I can perform in public, which is a story that I lived for many years. There is one mark with my capability and my limitations, with my strengths and with my vulnerabilities. I work with survivors of trafficking, people who have experienced unimaginable injustice. And what I've learned is that acceptance does not mean accepting the unjust and what was not right. It means accepting our reality as a starting point for effective action. It's accepting reality as a starting point for effective action. When a survivor stops fighting and acknowledges, yes, that trauma happened, that's when the beginning, the change of something new can be birthed. That's when they can start testifying, when they can start sharing what happened. Resistance born from acceptance, it's different. It's strategic and sustainable, and it's fierce. And I know that because I'm still here today, not because of the pain, but with the pain. We live in interesting times indeed, and we can touch it. We can be with it. Where are you fighting a battle? Maybe one nobody knows about, but it might be one you can't win with resistance. Maybe it's something physical, maybe a mental illness, maybe a relationship that changed, or a career that is not going the way you were hoping, maybe political realities that brought disturbance, maybe your own limitations looking at you from the mirror. Resistance takes everything from us. Acceptance gives us that energy back. It gives clarity. It gives a focus. And here's what I'm asking you today. Not any day, but today. What is one thing that you've been holding tightly that maybe you could just start holding lightly like a feather? One thing that you've been refusing to say yes to, have the courage to say yes to it. A yes with hope for change. Name it, describe it as it is, approach it with that feather and move beyond. Not because we like it, but because it is part of being here. Because our energy is better spent building the bridge than cursing the gap. Thank you very much.